Hey, it's Drybear, back with another Diablo 4 build guide, and today we're going to be talking about what could possibly be the hardest or most challenging build to play in the game, and that is the dual element caster druid build. I've been messing around with this one a lot. It is higher APM than some other builds, so if that's what you're looking for, there's more micromanagement as well, but there's a huge payoff in damage output, and it's just super unique and fun, so I enjoy playing it. But first, you should come hang out with me on my live stream. If you don't, then the next time your phone dies, your charger is going to be in another room, unable to move it. You'll have to displace your phone and leave it there all alone, sad and lonely, while you get in the other room while your phone charges. Let's jump into it. So the crux of this build is some buffs that we get at the end of our talent tree that allow us to supercharge our elemental spell casting when we change elements. So the idea here is that you're going to run both storm and earth magic and swap between them quickly and often enough so that you can benefit from these. Now, these numbers could change. They're 2.5 seconds than the buff duration, so you have to swap back and forth pretty often. They might mess around with this on launch, but just in general, the build will stay the same on how you manage this. So for basic builders, we're actually going to run both of these. I run this in a different druid build on my channel. If you're looking for more builds, I have tons of them. But for this specifically, the reason you can run two basic builders here is because there's a legendary modifier that makes your Earth Spike have a longer cooldown, which means you can Earth Spike. It gives it longer range and a more lifetime. So you can spawn that out and then throw out either your Wind Shear or your Lightning Strike while you're managing your Earth, and that allows you to go back and forth very easily, since realistically you can't run two spenders and use them both at the same time. So we're going to pick up Earth Spike. This one does earth damage, and again, with the legendary modifier, it'll have about 2 to 3 second cooldown. So you cast it out, but it has much longer range. We're going to get the modifier where you get a chance to stun, and then if it hits a stun target, it'll shoot another one, which makes it even stronger. You can actually hit large areas with this Earth Spike by itself. But again, while this is on cooldown, it allows you to use your other builder, Storm Strike. Now, the reason we use Storm Strike here instead of Wind Shear I think is better for a tornado build, is because it's lightning damage, and we have a lot of really cool things that we can do with lightning damage later on. So if it hits lightning damage, we have a lot of really awesome procs that we can move off that. So you'll be able to throw out your Earth Spike, spam Storm Strike, and then you'll build up, and then you'll spend using that. But you want to kind of go back and forth as your basic, starting point for your rotation. And for modifiers, we're going to get a chance to mobilize, and we're also going to make it chain to additional targets. This one I think is just better for building more of your passive resource and also being able to spread around the proc effects. We'll talk about it in a minute. Moving on to your core abilities or your spenders, we're going to pick up 2 here again as well. And there's a reason for this, which is really cool. Your primary spender is going to be Landslide, but using Landslide here will be tons of earth damage. If you're looking for a pure earth build, I actually have 2 different earth druid builds on my channel if you're looking for those. But this one will take advantage of Landslide. You have multiple procs on this, and then we'll modify it so that it hits additional enemies, and then it will mobilize, and then if you hit a CC'd target, you'll get additional Pillar of Earth, which won't work on bosses, but it'll be enough to overall affect our dungeon clearing progress. And then we pick up Tornado. This is another great way. You will cast this occasionally to get the storm effect from it. But what's great about this is we have other ways to spawn tornadoes. And those tornadoes, at least as the last testing that I did, unless they decide to change it, it will pick up the rank level and the modifiers that you have for the tornado ability. So as long as you have Tornado equipped and you've put points into it and got the modifiers, if you spawn it through other means, either through your ultimate or other procs, then it will benefit from these extra modifiers you have listed here, plus scale its damage based on the rank of the actual spell. Additionally, there are going to be times where you may want to leave Landslide out to deal damage. You're maxed on your passive resource, your spirit, and so you might want to throw out a tornado or 2, or maybe even you have situations where if the resistances come into play, if those exist at some point for super mega endgame, you may end up using Tornado in some situations over the Landslide. Come down to the defensive tree here, and there might be some room to wiggle around here. Because we picked up 2 builders and 2 spenders, we have some extra slots that are going to be filled, so we're going to have to lose some of these trees here. And actually, because of the way we're going to set up our passives and our ultimate, we don't necessarily need the abilities in this tree here, so we're going to skip them. Keep in mind that if you're leveling with this build, you can forgo one of your spenders or one of your builders to slot in some extra defense. Cyclone Armor is a great one. You can even get Roar or getting the Howl for extra damage and bonus there. But I think for this build, the bonuses you get from swapping elements is so potent that you actually don't need these buffs for damage output in general. So we're going to skip them in this build. And the same thing goes for companions. Again, because we picked up 2 builders and 2 spenders, we're an element caster. We don't have room for these extra abilities. We're going to skip both of these trees and go down one. Under Wrath, we're going to pick up Boulder because it's so potent. It's incredibly strong. It does a lot of really good damage, and we have some awesome bonuses for Earth in general that we're going to benefit from here. So we pick up Boulder. You can actually, it's probably going to be some parsing on figuring out which one is better. I think getting the modifier and then going into the crit chance based on number of hits is going to be really strong in general, but it's possible that the other option takes over if you decide to go for a tankier route in your build. But this is what I recommend. Pick up Boulder, put points into it, level it up, and you'll get some nice bonus damage out of it. The Earth skills here and the Storm skills are going to be pretty useful in passives. There's a ton of passives in this part of the tree that benefit our caster build significantly. So as you get closer to unlocking Paragon, probably in the 30s, you may want to look to backtrack once you have your core build and start putting in the passive points here. Crushing Earth is a great one, especially for clearing dungeons and doing normal mobs. It gives you Earth bonus damage, makes your landslide better, it makes your Earth spike better, it makes your Boulder better. All of that increases your damage significantly. When it comes to ultimates, you have 2 choices. You can pick up Petrify for Earth, or you can pick up Cataclysm for Storm magic. There's probably going to be one that you prefer more here, and it doesn't matter as much, mainly because you, when you are dealing damage here, you probably want the one that has the lower cooldown, because our key passive will give us free procs of equal category spells. So since Petrify has a lower cooldown, it's probably more efficient to cast this, because you will occasionally get free cataclysms out of it. But Petrify is a great option here because it'll give you bonus damage, more Earth damage, and then against targets that can be CC'd, you get crit damage, and then against bosses, you get even more crit damage, which is really cool. But on top of that, you'll get some modifiers for your spells in this split element tree of passives right here in the final ultimate part. Defiance, nature magic increases the damage dealt to elites by a pretty significant portion when you put damage into it. Natural disaster makes Earth cause increased damage to vulnerable targets, and Storm deals increased damage to CC'd targets, stunned, immobilized, or knocked back. Nature magic from resonance deal additional damage. Triple this bonus if an Earth skill is the next skill cast after a Storm skill, or a Storm skill is the next skill cast after an Earth skill. So now you're starting to see when this build starts to come together. So by alternating between nature and Earth magic, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, you can get significant damage multipliers that make each of those abilities better. Circle of Life is a nice defensive pickup as well. It makes your nature magic skills that consume spirit heal you. So if you have, it's nice to have a little bit of consumable there. Doesn't increase our damage, but it makes us tankier. And lastly, the big key passive that puts it all together is Nature's Fury. Casting an Earth skill has a chance to trigger a free Storm skill of the same category. And by category, it means the part of the tree that it's in. So for example, if we cast Petrify, it has a chance to cause a free Cataclysm. If we cast Cataclysm, it has a chance to cause a free Petrify. Going back up the tree, it means that when we cast Boulder, it has a chance to cause Hurricane. When we cast Earth Spike, it has a chance to cause our Storm Strike. When we cast Landslide, it has a chance to cast Tornado. So again, by swapping back and forth, not only are you getting bonus damage and scalars from the dual element, you're also causing tons of free spells to fly off of you at will, dealing damage and even more damage because you're swapping back and forth. And remember that getting these skills and leveling them up, of the last time I tested, they could change it, but last time I tested, it worked this way. You'll benefit from having points in them, right? So if you fire off a landslide and a tornado comes out for free, having points in tornado will make that tornado do more damage, and it'll have the modifiers that tornado you've put points into as well, and vice versa. So that's why in the basic, the builders and spenders, we get both so that we can enhance those abilities that we're casting constantly, and we'll have the highest chance of proccing free spells. We'll get more modifiers. We can scale their damage up significantly. And by swapping back and forth, they're both equally strong. So you'll be putting a lot of points in these as you get closer and closer to Paragon. And it's worth noting that the last time I tested this, big caveat because the game isn't out yet, it could make massive changes, but Cataclysm, it spawns passively tornadoes and lightning strikes. The tornadoes that come out from this benefit from having points in Tornado. So that's another reason why we put points in Tornado to scale it up. We also, let's talk about legendaries because there's more synergy here. We have a legendary that makes it so when you cast a storm skill for 4 seconds, you get a buff that enhances your earth skill's critical strike damage, the crit damage. And when you cast an earth skill, it increases the crit chance of your storm skills. These buffs just persist for 4 seconds. So as long as you're casting an earth and a storm every 4 seconds or so, you can maintain both buffs indefinitely. You also get the benefits and the passives we talked about, but this legendary brings it all together as well, and it causes you to switch back and forth and have a great time doing so. This is the legendary you're going to want for Earth Spike. This gives it a cooldown, but extends its range dramatically, and this allows you to very easily use both builders like we talked about, so you can cast Earth Spike and a couple Storm Strikes, and then Earth Spike, and then a couple Storm Strikes, because Earth Spike now has a cooldown. All of the legendaries that affect basic skills and core skills are going to get extra value here because we have more of them in our build, so basic skills getting attack speed is really nice. If you're running a earth heavy build like I did with the Cragstone build that I put out, you want this legendary. Applies a slow anytime you deal earth damage. It's great for grouping mobs up, but primarily a lot of the earth skills scale off dealing damage to targets that are crowd controlled, and slow is in that category. So for any benefits off of slowed targets or targets that are crowd controlled, getting this is nice. It also allows Boulder an easier time of hitting, Landslide an easier time of hitting, and just generally gives you more survivability against melee targets as well. You'll want to get the double hit for Landslide. Earth Pills strike at additional time and deal additional damage per hit. This gives you a little bit more uptime for Landslide. You can even use this with the aspect that gives you more damage based on how much spirit you have when you spend it. So you can throw out Landslide. If you want to, throw out a Tornado and then back to Landslide and Tornado. Although I found it more comfortable to just use Landslide and then use your builders and then Landslide and builders and let the natural procs trigger the tornadoes, since you can get more damage out of it that way. But this one makes Landslide pretty killer. I tested this a bunch and I didn't get crazy value out of this, but remember that even if you're not picking up Hurricane, you can still proc Hurricane by throwing out Boulder, and so Aspect of the Tempest that makes Hurricane deal damage here. I just think that if there's not a free slot of legendary in the build, this may not fit unless you're running Hurricane as your primary, which you certainly could. You could run Hurricane and have Boulder proc randomly. It's just Boulder is very positional and Hurricane is very in this general area. And so I like having the control of Boulder in my build and letting Hurricane come out on its own. And you can get value here. I just didn't get crazy value when I was testing it. Aspect of the Expectant is what I was talking about before. You can build up damage with your basic skills, your builders, and increase the damage of your core skill. What I wasn't able to confirm this or not, or whether or not if you get a free spell cast off this, does that actually remove the stacks here? Like say I proc Landslide and it takes the stacks away, and then I build and I build and I build, and a free Tornado comes out from my ultimate or something. Does that remove the stacks here or not? If it doesn't, this actually becomes exceptionally powerful because it means that you can control when that damage comes out. But if it does, there might be more tests on this, but this is definitely one to consider. Edgemaster's aspect is huge here. Damage increases for your spenders based on how much resource you have. So you can use your 2 builders to build up to full. Landslide and increases the damage of that, and then you can build back up again. There's actually a lot of spirit available in this build, especially the faster your build gets with better gear. You'll be able to generate a bunch and get some good value out of this scaler. And that's the build. Leave me a like if you liked it. If not, whatever. Come hang out with me on my live stream. I'd love to talk to you and chat with you. We'll be playing and covering Diablo 4 plus other games as well. So we'll see you there. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content. Link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.